I stared at my birthday cake as it sat untouched on the table, 20 unlit candles waiting for a celebration that would never happen. Across from me, my sister Tara was screaming, mascara streaming down her face, while my parents rushed to comfort her. My perfectly planned birthday dinner lay in ruins, wine dripping from the white tablecloth where Tara had thrown her glass in rage when attention dared shift to me for once. In that moment, watching them coddle her again, something inside me finally broke. This time would be different. Growing up as the older sister to Tara meant I had to be the responsible one. My parents always called me the easy child, but what they really meant was that I was expected to manage myself while they focused all their energy on my sister. From the earliest days I can remember, I was Babette the capable one, Babette the mature one, Babette who could handle things on her own. When I was 9, I had been taking dance lessons for 3 years. I loved ballet more than anything, and my teacher said I had real potential. That same year, Tara decided she wanted to try gymnastics after watching the Olympics. Within weeks, my parents told me we couldn't afford both activities. "Your sister really needs this outlet for her energy," Mom explained while driving me to my last dance class. "She struggles so much with focus, and the coach thinks she might be able to compete someday." I remember nodding and staring out the window, tears silently rolling down my cheeks as I watched the landscape blur past. I never told them how much it hurt to give up something I loved. I just accepted it as the way things were in our family. Tara needed more, so I needed less. This pattern continued throughout our childhood. When college application time came around, I discovered that most of what should have been my college fund had been redirected to Tara's private high school after she struggled in public school. "You're so smart, honey," Dad said when I confronted them. "You'll get scholarships. Your sister needs this specialized environment to thrive." I did get scholarships, but not enough to attend my dream school. Instead, I stayed local, living at home to save money while watching Tara's bedroom sit empty after she moved into a fancy dorm at a university that cost twice what mine did. Through it all, I had Madison. We'd been friends since elementary school, and she was the only person who truly understood the toxic dynamic in my family. She'd witnessed it firsthand for over 15 years. "Your parents are creating a monster," Madison told me once after Tara had thrown a fit about the wrong toppings on her pizza, resulting in my parents driving 30 minutes to get her a replacement while our food got cold. "And they're taking advantage of you because you're too nice to stand up for yourself." I knew she was right, but what could I do? They were my family. I loved them, despite everything. My sweet 16 was the first time I really felt the sting of the unfairness. Mom and Dad had promised me a party at the local roller rink. I'd invited 20 friends, and Mom had ordered a custom cake with my favorite book characters on it. 2 hours before the party, Tara fell down the stairs. She screamed so loudly that our neighbor came running over. My parents rushed her to the emergency room. It turned out she had a mild sprain. The doctor wrapped her ankle and sent her home with instructions to ice it and rest. By then, it was too late to salvage my party. Mom called all the guests while I sat in the hospital waiting room, telling them the celebration was canceled. "We'll reschedule, sweetie," she promised, squeezing my shoulder. "Once Tara is feeling better." They never did reschedule. Instead, 2 weeks later, they threw Tara an emotional recovery party that was twice as elaborate as my canceled Sweet 16 would have been. When I asked about my postponed celebration, Mom looked genuinely confused. "Oh, Babette, that was weeks ago. We thought you'd forgotten about it." How could I forget about my own birthday party? After high school, I got a job at a local bookstore called Turning Pages while attending community college. The owner, Denise, was in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She quickly became the mentor figure I'd always craved. She noticed my work ethic and promoted me within months. "You've got a good head on your shoulders," she told me. "Most kids your age don't have half your responsibility." What Denise didn't know was that much of my responsibility came from necessity. At home, I managed the family finances, organized everyone's schedules, and handled most household tasks. despite being a full-time student with a part-time job. My parents worked long hours, and Tara simply refused to help. Somehow it had become my job to make sure bills were paid on time, appointments were kept, and the house didn't fall into chaos. One evening, about a month before my 20th birthday, Madison and I were having dinner at her apartment. She'd been unusually quiet throughout the meal, pushing her food around her plate. "I need to show you something," she finally said, pulling out her phone. "I've been debating whether to show you this for weeks, but you deserve to know." She handed me her phone, opened to an old text conversation with Tara from 3 years ago. I started reading, my stomach dropping with each message. "Madison, why did you tell everyone Bailey was taking Emma to prom? You knew Babette had been hoping he'd ask her." "Tara, it worked, didn't it?" he asked Emma instead. "Not my fault. My sister is too boring to get a date on her own." "Madison, that was cruel. You saw how upset she was." "Tara, whatever. She'll get over it. She always does." "Tara, it worked, didn't it?" he asked Emma instead. "Not my fault. My sister is too boring to get a date on her own." "There's more," Madison said quietly. "She's been doing this for years. I never showed you because I thought it would hurt you too much. But after watching her pull the same stunt at your birthday dinner last year, I can't stay quiet anymore. This isn't normal sister rivalry, Babs. This is systematic sabotage." I handed the phone back, feeling oddly calm despite the revelation. On some level, I'd always known. Seeing the evidence just confirmed what my heart had suspected for years. I scrolled down, finding more messages from other occasions. Tara admitting to deliberately starting a fight at my high school graduation party so my parents would leave early. Tara bragging about faking an anxiety attack during my college acceptance celebration to redirect attention to herself. "Why does she hate me so much?" I whispered. I drove home that night with Madison's words echoing in my head. For the first time, I looked at my family situation with clear eyes. I wasn't just tired from managing everyone's lives. I was emotionally exhausted from years of being overlooked, undervalued, and manipulated. Something had to change. I just didn't know what or how. Not yet. As my 20th birthday approached, I allowed myself a small amount of excitement. 20 felt significant. Not quite as momentous as 21 would be, but still an important milestone. I wanted to celebrate in a way that felt special, but not extravagant. "Let's go to Giovanni's," I suggested to my parents over breakfast 3 weeks before my birthday. Giovanni's was a cozy Italian restaurant downtown, slightly upscale but not outrageous. Just the 4 of us in Madison, my treat. Mom looked surprised. "You want to pay? Honey, we can cover dinner." "I want to," I insisted. "I've been saving." What I didn't mention was that I'd been putting aside a small amount from each paycheck for 6 months specifically for this occasion. Dad nodded approvingly. Our girl, always so responsible with money. I spent weeks looking forward to that dinner. I even bought a new dress, a deep blue wrap style that Madison said brought out my eyes. I'd never spent $100 on a single item of clothing before, but this felt worth it. The evening of my birthday started better than I could have hoped. My parents arrived on time, dressed nicely. Tara was wearing a new outfit too, which surprised me. She rarely made an effort for family events centered around anyone but herself. "Happy birthday, sis," she said, giving me a quick hug that felt almost genuine. Madison arrived a few minutes later, greeting me with a proper bear hug and a gift bag. "Happy birthday, Babs. You look gorgeous." As we waited to be seated, Madison pulled me aside briefly. "Is it just me, or is Tara being weirdly nice?" I glanced over at my sister, who was checking her phone and smiling at something on the screen. Maybe she's in a good mood? Let's not question it. The hostess led us to our table, a round booth near the window with a view of the downtown square. The restaurant had a warm ambiance, with soft lighting and the delicious smell of garlic and herbs in the air. Conversation flowed easily as we ordered appetizers and wine. Mom talked about her garden. Dad shared a funny story about a client at his accounting firm, And even Tara seemed engaged, asking me questions about my classes and work. "This is really nice," I whispered to Madison as our entrees arrived. She squeezed my hand under the table. "You deserve it." After dinner, Mom pulled out a small cake box from her oversized purse. "I know the restaurant has dessert, but I wanted you to have your favorite." Inside was a small chocolate cake with buttercream frosting from the local bakery I loved. 20 candles circled the top. "Make a wish," Dad said as the waiter lit the candles. I closed my eyes, feeling genuinely happy for the first time in months. Before I could blow out the candles, Mom said, "Wait, let's sing first." As they began singing Happy Birthday, I noticed Tara shifting in her seat, her expression changing. She kept checking her phone under the table, her lips curling into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Just as they finished singing and I leaned forward to blow out the candles, Tara stood up abruptly. "I have an announcement to make," she declared, her voice loud enough that diners at nearby tables turned to look. Mom and Dad paused, attention immediately diverted from my cake to their younger daughter. Madison subtly rolled her eyes beside me. "I got the letter today," Tara continued, reaching into her purse. "I've been accepted to Stanford's graduate program. Full scholarship." My parents gasped in unison. Mom's hands flew to her mouth, and Dad's eyes widened in shock. "Oh my God, Tara, that's incredible," Mom exclaimed, jumping up to hug her. Dad followed suit, wrapping both of them in his arms. "My God, Stanford, with a full ride. That's my girl." I sat frozen, candles still flickering on my untouched cake, the moment shattered. Madison's hand found mine under the table again, squeezing tightly. "Should we order champagne?" Dad asked, already looking around for our waiter. "Absolutely," Mom agreed. "This calls for a proper celebration." Neither of them seemed to remember that we were already in the middle of a celebration. My celebration. I blew out my candles quietly while they fussed over Tara. No one noticed. "Open your presents while we wait for the champagne," Madison encouraged, pushing the small pile of gifts toward me. I picked up the first package, a small box from my parents. As I began to unwrap it, Tara launched into detailed descriptions of the Stanford campus and the prestigious professors she'd be studying under. My parents hung on her every word, peppering her with questions about housing, program duration, and when she would move to California. My half-unwrapped gift sat forgotten in my hands. I placed it back on the table and took a sip of water, trying to swallow past the lump in my throat. Madison excused herself to use the restroom, touching my shoulder supportively as she passed. I noticed she took her phone with her, which was unusual. The champagne arrived, and Dad proposed a toast to Tara's achievement, to my brilliant daughter and her incredible future at Stanford. I raised my water glass mechanically. No one seemed to notice I wasn't drinking the champagne they'd ordered. 15 minutes later, Madison returned, her expression tight. She slid back into the booth beside me and leaned close to my ear. "I need to show you something. Now." "Bathroom." I excused myself, though I'm not sure anyone heard me. In the bathroom, Madison locked the door behind us and pulled out her phone. I followed Tara when she went to the bathroom earlier. She was on the phone with her boyfriend. She pressed play on a video. The footage was slightly shaky, but clear enough. Tara stood by the restaurant's back entrance, phone to her ear, laughing. "They totally bought it." Her voice came through clearly. "Dad's already talking about visiting campus. It's not like I even applied to Stanford, but they'll believe anything I say." A pause as she listened to the person on the other end. "No, they haven't even asked to see the acceptance letter yet. I just printed something official looking off the internet." Another laugh. "It's not like her birthday matters anyway. She's so boring. All she does is work and study." Madison stopped the video, watching my face carefully. "Are you okay?" I felt oddly calm. The hurt was there, but buried beneath layers of numbness. I should have expected this. "What are you going to confront her?" I shook my head. "What's the point? They won't believe me. They'll say I'm jealous or trying to ruin her moment." When we returned to the table dessert had been served. My cake sat in the center, cut into slices but largely untouched. Tara was still holding court, now talking about an apartment in Palo Alto she'd found online. We could help with the deposit, Mom was saying. It would be worth it for a safe neighborhood. Dad nodded in agreement. Maybe Babette could contribute too. She's always so good with saving money. They didn't even look at me as they volunteered my finances for Tara's fabricated future. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur. I barely spoke, but no one noticed. Madison tried valiantly to redirect conversation back to my birthday several times, but Tara always managed to steer it back to Stanford. When the bill came, I paid as planned, though the evening had been anything but what I'd anticipated. $300 for a dinner, where I'd been nothing but a footnote at my own celebration. We drove home in separate cars. I declined Madison's offer to come over, needing time alone to process. As I followed my parents' car back to our house, watching Tara animatedly talking in the passenger seat, gesturing with her hands, I felt something shift inside me. This hadn't just been another disappointing family event. This was the final piece of evidence in a pattern that had defined my entire life. And for the first time, I allowed myself to consider a possibility that had always seemed unthinkable before. What if I simply wasn't there anymore? Not in a tragic sense. But what if I removed myself from this toxic family dynamic? What if I stopped being the responsible one, the overlooked one, the one who kept everything running while receiving nothing in return? What would happen to their perfect little world without me? I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake replaying not just the disastrous dinner, but years of similar moments. The time Tara interrupted my high school valedictorian speech rehearsal because she needed help with a simple homework assignment. The Christmas, when my carefully selected gifts for everyone sat unopened, because Tara had a meltdown about not getting the exact laptop she wanted. The countless family gatherings where I prepared everything while Tara arrived late and received all the attention. By morning, I felt eerily calm. Something had crystallized inside me. I showered and dressed for work, then headed downstairs to find my family at breakfast as if nothing had happened. "Morning, honey," Mom said, barely looking up from her coffee. "There's bagels if you want one." Tara was showing Dad something on her phone. "So this is the building where most graduate students live," she was saying. "It's expensive, but with the scholarship covering tuition." They didn't mention my birthday. Not a word about the ruined celebration or even a belated wish. It was as if the entire evening had been about Tara's fictional acceptance letter, not my 20th birthday. I grabbed a bagel and left for my shift at Turning Pages without saying goodbye. No one noticed. At the bookstore, the morning rush kept me busy. Around 11, during a quiet moment, the emotions I'd been suppressing hit me all at once. I retreated to the stockroom, sank down against the wall, and burst into tears. That's where Denise found me a few minutes later. Instead of asking questions, she simply sat beside me on the floor, her presence steady and comforting. "I'm sorry," I finally managed, wiping my eyes. "I don't usually fall apart at work." "You don't usually fall apart at all, from what I've seen," she replied. "Want to tell me what happened?" For the first time, I shared everything. The years of being overshadowed, the constant sacrifices, the realization that nothing would ever change if I stayed in this pattern. I told her about my ruined birthday and Tara's elaborate lie. Denise listened without interruption, her expression growing increasingly troubled. When I finished, she shook her head slowly. "Babette, what you're describing isn't normal family dynamics. It's emotional neglect, possibly even abuse." The word abuse made me flinch. That seems extreme. They don't hit me or anything. "Abuse comes in many forms," Denise said gently. "What they're doing is systematically devaluing you while enabling your sister's worst behaviors. It's not healthy for any of you." She paused, seeming to consider something. "You know, I went through something similar with my family when I was about your age. Different circumstances, but the same feeling of being drained dry while getting nothing back." "What did you do?" I asked. "I left. Created boundaries. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most necessary. She hesitated. I actually have a small guest house behind my home. My nephew was staying there, but he moved out last month. If you're thinking what I think you're thinking, it's available. Reduced rent for a good employee. The offer stunned me. I couldn't impose. It's not imposing if I'm offering. Think about it. No pressure. For the rest of my shift, I did think about it. The idea of having my own space, away from the constant drama and neglect, was tempting beyond words. But could I actually do it? Logistically? Emotionally? That evening, I sat down with my laptop and created a spreadsheet. First, I listed my current savings. Between my bookstore job and the freelance editing work I occasionally did for professors at the community college, I had managed to save about $6,000. Next, I calculated necessary expenses. Rent, if I took Denise's offer. Utilities, food, health insurance, phone plan. I researched options for each, finding ways to minimize costs while maintaining independence. I could increase my hours at the bookstore during summer break. The freelance editing could become more regular with some effort. The numbers were tight but doable. I wouldn't be comfortable, but I could survive on my own. The next day, I went to my bank to check on some details about my account. The teller directed me to speak with a personal banker named Jessica. I'd like to understand exactly what access my parents have to my account, I explained after introducing myself. It was opened when I was 16, and they're still listed somewhere on it. Jessica typed something into her computer, then frowned slightly. Your parents are co-signers on the account. They have full access to view and withdraw funds. Have they been using that access? I asked, a sinking feeling in my stomach. More typing. There have been several transfers from this account to another account in the past 2 years. The most recent was last month, $3,000. My breath caught. How much total? She calculated quickly. $7,400 in total withdrawals by the secondary account holders. The room seemed to tilt slightly. $7,400. Money I'd earned. Money that could have paid for a semester at a better college or given me the freedom I was now desperately seeking. Is there any way to remove them from my account? I asked. Not from this account, no. But we can open a new account solely in your name and transfer the remaining funds. You're over 18, so there's no need for a cosigner now. I nodded. Let's do that. Jessica helped me set up a new account, one my parents couldn't access. She also provided resources on building credit and financial literacy. By the time I left the bank, I had a new account, a secured credit card to build my credit history, and a clearer picture of my financial situation. It was worse than I'd thought in terms of past losses, but the path forward was becoming clearer. Over the next week, I began testing my family's reactions to my decreased availability. I picked up extra shifts at the bookstore. I stayed late at the college library. I signed up for a weekend workshop on editing that I'd previously declined because it conflicted with a family obligation. The response was immediate and telling. Mom called repeatedly, asking why I wasn't home for dinner or available to help with household tasks. Dad mentioned pointedly that the yard needed work I usually handled. Tara's texts became increasingly demanding, upset that I wasn't available to help with her Stanford application paperwork. The continued lie made my blood boil. The most revealing moment came when I missed Sunday dinner because of my workshop. We're disappointed in you, Babette, Dad said when I got home that evening. Family comes first. You know Tara gets anxious when routines change. There was no acknowledgement that I might have needs or priorities of my own. No questions about my workshop or interest in my development. Just disappointment that I wasn't fulfilling my assigned role in maintaining family harmony. Madison helped me create a detailed exit strategy. We listed everything I would need to take with me, categorized by importance and sentimentality. We created a timeline for gradually removing items without raising suspicion. She offered her garage for temporary storage of larger things I couldn't move all at once. Are you sure about this? She asked as we finalized the plan. It's going to be really hard. I'm sure, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. If I stay, nothing will ever change. They'll keep taking and taking until there's nothing left of me. The plan was set for 3 weeks later. Denise's guest house would be ready by then. And most importantly, my family would be attending my cousin's wedding 4 hours away. I had already told them I couldn't go because of finals, though my actual reason was that I couldn't bear another family event where Tara would inevitably create some drama. Those 3 weeks were the strangest of my life. I moved through my family home like a ghost, present but increasingly detached. I maintained the perfect daughter facade while systematically preparing for my disappearance. Every day, a few more items made their way to Madison's garage or Denise's guest house. Books, winter clothes, mementos, photos. No one noticed. They were too consumed with Tara's fictional Stanford plans and the upcoming wedding drama. Who would sit where? Which relatives wouldn't speak to each other? I felt like a spy in my own home, carrying out a mission so important that discovery would be catastrophic. The mixture of terror, guilt, and exhilaration was unlike anything I'd experienced before. You're doing the right thing, Madison reminded me whenever my resolve wavered. This isn't selfish. It's self-preservation. I repeated those words to myself like a mantra during moments of doubt. This isn't selfish. It's self-preservation. And with each passing day, as my true life was secretly transferred elsewhere, I began to believe it. The day of reckoning arrived with perfect weather, sunny but cool. My family had left early that morning for the wedding, expected to return late the following day. I had the house entirely to myself for over 30 hours, more than enough time. I'd been methodically removing my possessions for 3 weeks, starting with the most sentimental items that would be difficult to replace. The process had been surprisingly easy. My family, eternally focused on Tara and her fabricated future, hadn't noticed my gradually emptying room. The few things they did notice missing I explained away as loans to friends or donations to Goodwill. Denise had been incredible, helping furnish the guest house with basics: a bed, a small table with chairs, kitchenware, and a comfortable reading chair now waited for me in my new home. Madison's garage had temporarily housed my books, winter clothing, and the few larger items I couldn't sneak out during my family's regular comings and goings. The morning they left, I maintained the charade until the very end. "Are you sure you can't come?" Mom asked as they loaded the car. "Your professor would understand." "I really can't, Mom. This exam is 20% of my grade." The lie came easily after weeks of practice. "Have fun. Take lots of pictures." I waved from the porch as they drove away, maintaining my smile until the car disappeared around the corner. Then I went inside and got to work. Madison arrived 30 minutes later with her car and a determined expression. "Operation Freedom is a go," she announced, giving me a quick hug. "How are you feeling?" "Ready," I replied. And I was. The weeks of planning, the careful execution, the constant vigilance, all of it had led to this moment. We worked efficiently, loading Madison's car with the remaining items I wanted to take: my desk chair, my favorite blanket, the last of my clothes and toiletries. Each trip to Madison's car felt like another step toward liberty. After the third carload, we took a break in my increasingly empty room. The walls, once covered with photos and posters, now showed only blank spaces and the occasional pushpin I'd forgotten to remove. "It's weird seeing it like this," Madison said, looking around. "You've had this room since we were kids." I nodded, a lump forming in my throat despite my resolve. "A lot of memories here." "Second thoughts?" I shook my head firmly. "No, just acknowledging the end of an era, I guess." We continued working until early afternoon, by which point we'd removed everything I planned to take. All that remained were the furniture pieces that belonged to the house, and a few items I'd deliberately left to avoid the room looking completely abandoned at first glance. A sweatshirt hanging on the back of the door. A few books on the shelf. My high school yearbooks. "I need to do one last walkthrough," I told Madison. "Alone, if that's okay." She squeezed my arm. "Take your time. I'll wait in the car." I moved slowly through the house where I'd spent my entire life, the kitchen where I'd learned to cook, the living room where we'd opened Christmas presents each year, the backyard where Dad had taught me to throw a baseball, before Tara became the center of his attention. In each room, I allowed myself to remember both the good and the bad, the moments of genuine family connection, the countless times I'd been pushed aside, forgotten, or taken for granted. When I reached the attic access in the hallway, I hesitated. There was a box of old family photos I'd been meaning to look through but never found the time. On impulse, I pulled down the ladder and climbed up. The attic was hot and dusty, filled with the accumulated possessions of decades. I found the photo box easily enough, but beside it was something unexpected. A small wooden chest I'd never seen before, with the name Eleanor carved into the lid. My grandmother's name. I'd never met my grandmother. She died before I was born. Mom rarely spoke of her, saying only that they hadn't been close. Curious, I opened the chest. Inside were bundles of letters, a few pieces of jewelry, and a leather-bound book, a diary. I opened it to a random page, my eyes widening as I read. The 15th of April 1965. Mother and father fussed over Meredith again today. Her smallest accomplishment is celebrated while my graduation plans are barely acknowledged. It's always been this way. Meredith, the delicate flower. Eleanor, the reliable oak. I am tired of being strong for everyone while receiving nothing in return. I sat back on my heels, stunned. My grandmother had experienced the same family pattern. Her sister, my great-aunt Meredith, had been the Tara of her generation. I flipped through more pages, finding entry after entry documenting a family dynamic eerily similar to my own experience, the constant overlooking of Eleanor's needs, the dramatic episodes from Meredith that redirected all attention, the parents who enabled one daughter while exploiting the other's resilience. The final entries were from 1970. The 15th of April 1965. Mother and father fussed over Meredith again today. Her smallest accomplishment is celebrated while my graduation plans are barely acknowledged. It's always been this way. Meredith, the delicate flower. Eleanor, the reliable oak. I am tired of being strong for everyone while receiving nothing in return. I flipped through more pages, finding entry after entry documenting a family dynamic eerily similar to my own experience, the constant overlooking of Eleanor's needs, the dramatic episodes from Meredith that redirected all attention, the parents who enabled one daughter while exploiting the other's resilience. I've done it. I've moved out and told them not to contact me. Mother cried and father raged, but for once, I held firm. Meredith, predictably, made it all about her abandonment. I feel guilty, but also lighter than I have in years. Perhaps someday we can build a healthier relationship, but for now, this distance is necessary for my survival. I carefully placed the diary in my bag, feeling like it had been waiting here for me to find at exactly this moment, a message across generations. I need space to find myself. Please respect my decision by not contacting me for 30 days. I am safe and will reach out when I'm ready. Babette. No accusations, no explanations, just a clear boundary and a request for time. Madison was waiting patiently in her car. Find what you needed? I showed her the diary. Something better. Confirmation that I'm not crazy or selfish. My grandmother went through the exact same thing. We drove to Denise's house in comfortable silence. The guest house sat at the back of her property, a charming one-bedroom cottage with a small porch. Denise was gardening when we arrived and stood to greet us, wiping her hands on her jeans. "Welcome home," she said simply, handing me a key. Madison helped me bring in the last of my belongings, and Denise invited us both for dinner in the main house. But eventually, they left, and I was alone in my new space for the first time. The guest house was small but perfect. A combined living and kitchen area, a bedroom just big enough for my bed and dresser, and a compact bathroom. Every inch was mine. No one would enter without my permission. No one would touch my things or make demands on my time within these walls. I moved around the space, touching surfaces, adjusting items, making it mine. I unpacked my clothes and arranged my books. I set up my laptop on the small desk by the window. When everything was in its place, I sat on the edge of my bed and allowed myself to feel everything I'd been suppressing. Grief for the family relationships I'd hoped for, but never had. Fear about making it on my own. Relief at escaping the toxic patterns that had defined my life. And beneath it all, a tentative hope for the future I was claiming for myself. That night, I slept better than I had in years, in a space that was truly mine, where no one's needs would come before my own. For the first 48 hours after leaving my note, my phone remained silent. I wasn't surprised. My family was still at the wedding, probably assuming I was making a point about my ruined birthday. They likely expected me to be there when they returned, perhaps with an apology for my selfish behavior. On Monday evening, the texts began. Mom, 6:14 p.m. Where are you? We're home. Mom, 6:35 p.m. Babette, this isn't funny. Call me right now. Dad, 6:42 p.m. Your mother is worried. Come home. Dada, 7:03 p.m. OMG? Drama queen much? Nobody cares about your tantrum. I read each message, but didn't respond. My note had clearly stated 30 days of no contact. I intended to honor that boundary for myself, even if they couldn't respect it. By Wednesday, the tone of the messages had shifted from annoyed to concerned. Mom, 10:22 a.m. Please, just let us know you're safe. We're considering calling the police. I sent a single text in response. I am safe. As my note said, I need 30 days without contact. Please respect that. Then I silenced notifications from my family members, though I didn't block them entirely. Madison had agreed to monitor their messages and alert me to anything truly important. Mom, 10:22 a.m. Please, just let us know you're safe. We're considering calling the police. How did she take that? They're freaking out, she reported when we met for coffee that weekend. Your mom called me 4 times yesterday, asking if I knew where you were. I said I did and that you were safe, but I wouldn't tell her anything else. According to Madison, the real chaos began during the second week. That's when my family discovered just how much I'd been handling behind the scenes. Your mom called me in a panic because she couldn't find any of the account passwords for the utilities, Madison said. Apparently they didn't realize you'd been paying the water and electric bills from your own account for the past year? Madison snorted. Not well. She said I was being a terrible friend by enabling your behavior. I told her I was being a good friend by respecting your boundaries. I nodded. Dad kept forgetting to pay them on time, and they got shut off twice. I just took it over because it was easier than dealing with no electricity. It wasn't just the bills. My parents discovered they didn't know the names of any of their neighbors well enough to ask for help. They couldn't remember which day was trash collection. They had no idea where important documents were stored. And Tara was making everything worse with her increasing tantrums. Jack told me Tara had a complete meltdown yesterday because no one had done her laundry, Madison reported during our 3rd-week update. Jack was Tara's boyfriend, who I'd always found surprisingly decent despite his poor taste in girlfriends. She expected Mom to do it, but your mom was busy trying to figure out how to pay the mortgage online. Apparently Tara doesn't even know how to operate the washing machine. She's 22. The stories kept coming. The family car broke down, and my father realized he didn't have the contact information for their regular mechanic. My mother missed 2 days of work to handle household tasks I'd managed without anyone noticing. Tara's Stanford plans were put on hold amid the growing chaos. Friends and neighbors were starting to notice the family's disheveled appearance and obvious stress. My parents had always maintained an image of perfect family harmony in public. That facade was crumbling rapidly in my absence. 3 weeks into my self-imposed exile, I received a text from an unknown number asking to meet. It was Jack, Tara's boyfriend. "I got your number from Madison," his text read. "Need to talk to you about your family. It's important." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop near campus. I arrived early and chose a table with a clear view of the entrance. Jack arrived right on time, looking tired and tense. "Thanks for meeting me," he said after ordering a black coffee. "I wouldn't have reached out if it wasn't serious." "What's going on?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. He ran a hand through his hair. "It's a mess, Babette. Your leaving has exposed everything. Tara never even applied to Stanford. She never finished her undergraduate degree, even though your parents paid for 4 years of tuition." I blinked, genuinely shocked. "What? How is that possible?" She kept lying about completing classes, showing them fake transcripts. The truth is, she dropped out after sophomore year. She's been pretending to attend classes for 2 years while actually just hanging out at the campus coffee shop. The revelation was staggering. I knew Tara was manipulative, but this level of deception was beyond what I'd imagined. "There's more," Jack continued, looking increasingly uncomfortable. "Your parents have almost no retirement savings left. They've been using it to support Tara's lifestyle and cover her educational expenses. I think they're in serious financial trouble." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "They need you to come back and fix things. The whole house of cards is collapsing without you there to keep everything running." He leaned forward earnestly. "I know it's not fair to ask, but they're drowning." I studied him for a moment. "Did Tara send you to convince me?" He shook his head. "She doesn't know I'm here. She thinks I'm at the gym." He hesitated. "Look, I care about her, but I'm starting to see how dysfunctional this whole situation is. I thought maybe if you came back, you could help straighten things out." "That's exactly why I left, Jack. Things will never change if I keep enabling them. They need to learn to function without using me as their safety net." I stood up, gathering my belongings. "I think you should reconsider your relationship with my sister. This pattern isn't going to change unless something forces it to." "What about your parents?" he asked as I prepared to leave. "They're adults who made their choices. Now they need to deal with the consequences." My resolve was tested that evening when my mother left a tearful voicemail. Madison had forwarded it to me with a warning that it was emotionally manipulative, but that I should probably listen anyway. "Babette, sweetie, please come home." Mom's voice cracked with obvious tears. "We need you. Everything's falling apart without you. Dad and I don't know how to fix any of this. Tara won't get out of bed most days. Whatever we did to upset you, we're sorry. Just come home and we can work it out as a family." I played the message twice, feeling the pull of guilt and responsibility that had kept me trapped for so long. Maybe I was being selfish. Maybe I should go back and help them. Madison, seeing my expression, pulled up the video she'd taken at my birthday dinner. "Watch this again before you decide anything." The footage showed Tara laughing about her Stanford lie, dismissing my birthday as unimportant, mocking me as boring. It showed my parents fawning over her fabricated achievement while my cake sat forgotten. "This is who they are," Madison said firmly. "Don't let a few tears erase 20 years of them treating you like an afterthought." She was right. Going back now would only reset the pattern. Nothing would change except they'd be more careful to keep me placated enough to continue serving their needs. The search for me intensified as the 4th week began. My parents called everyone they could think of. They showed up at the bookstore during my shift, but Denise intercepted them before they could find me in the back office. "I suggested they seek family counseling," she told me later. "Your father didn't take it well, called me a meddling old woman. Your mother seemed more receptive, though." Madison reported that family friends were taking sides. Many who had observed the dynamic over the years were quietly supportive of my decision, though they wouldn't say so directly to my parents. "Mrs. Wilson from next door told your mom that she wasn't surprised you needed space, given how they've always favored Tara. Apparently your mom burst into tears right there on the front lawn." The community was witnessing the collapse of my family's carefully maintained image. Without me there to smooth over conflicts, manage practical matters, and absorb Tara's drama. The dysfunction was on full display for everyone to see, and somewhere deep inside, beneath the guilt and worry, I felt a profound validation. I hadn't been crazy or oversensitive all these years. The problems had been real, and others had seen them too. The true test came at the beginning of week 4. Madison warned me that my parents had discovered where I worked and were planning another confrontation. This time, they were bringing Tara, hoping the full family appearance would pressure me to return. "They'll be there around noon tomorrow," she said. "Do you want me to come for moral support?" I considered avoiding the confrontation entirely by calling in sick, but that would only delay the inevitable. At some point, I would have to face them and hold my boundary. "No, I need to handle this myself," I decided. "But thanks for the heads up." I informed Denise about the potential situation. She offered to ask them to leave if things got too heated, which I appreciated. The next day, I worked the register with one eye on the door. At exactly 12:15, they walked in. Mom looked like she hadn't slept in days. Dad's usually immaculate appearance was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled and his hair uncombed. And Tara, typically so carefully put together, wore no makeup and had dark circles under her eyes. They spotted me immediately. Several customers were browsing nearby, making a scene impossible without public embarrassment. Mom approached first, arms outstretched. "Babette, thank God. We've been so worried." I stepped back, maintaining physical distance. I left a note. I said I needed 30 days. "This is ridiculous," Dad said, his voice low but intense. "You need to come home and help us fix this mess you've created." The audacity of his statement momentarily stunned me. The mess I'd created? By removing myself from their exploitation? "I haven't created any mess," I replied calmly. "I've simply stopped cleaning up everyone else's." Tara pushed forward. "Do you have any idea what you've done to this family? Mom cries all the time. Dad can't sleep. Nothing works right anymore." "That's not my responsibility," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "I'm 20 years old. I have my own life to live." "But we're your family," Mom pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. "Family supports each other." "Support goes both ways, Mom. For 20 years, I've supported all of you. When has anyone supported me?" The question hung in the air between us. A few customers were openly watching now, intrigued by the family drama unfolding. "We've given you everything," Dad insisted. "A roof over your head, food, education. Basic parental obligations aren't special favors," I countered. "And what about emotional support? What about recognizing my achievements? What about my birthday last month that turned into Tara's celebration based on a lie?" Dad's face reddened. "What lie?" Tara got into Stanford. I laughed softly, without humor. "No, she didn't. She never even applied. Just like she never finished her undergraduate degree, despite you paying full tuition for 4 years. My mother gasped, turning to Tara. "What is she talking about?" Tara's face crumpled. "She's lying. She's always been jealous of me." "Ask to see the acceptance letter," I suggested. "Ask to speak to her academic advisor. Ask for her transcripts. Real ones, not the ones she printed off the internet." The shock on my parents' faces confirmed they had never thought to verify any of Tara's claims. They had simply taken her word while questioning everything about me. "How did you know?" Mom whispered. "Jack told me," I said. "He's worried about all of you." "That's why we need you to come home," Dad said, quickly recovering from the revelation. "To help sort all this out, to fix our family." I shook my head. "I'm not coming back to fix anything. That's not my job anymore." "Then why did you come back into our lives just to drop this bomb?" Tara demanded. "I didn't come back. You came here, to my workplace, after I explicitly asked for space." I gestured around the bookstore. "You tracked me down using the location on my phone, didn't you?" My father looked away guiltily. "You installed a tracking app years ago," I realized aloud. "That's how you found me at work." "It was for your safety," Mom insisted weakly. It was for your control, I corrected. And I'm done being controlled. I'm done being used. I'm done being the family foundation while receiving nothing in return. Several customers were nodding slightly, clearly on my side in this confrontation. Denise had appeared from the back office, watching carefully but not intervening yet. So that's it? Dad asked bitterly. 20 years of family, and you just walk away? I'm not walking away from family, I said. I'm walking away from exploitation. There's a difference. I took a deep breath. I need you all to leave now. I'm working. Babette, please, Mom began, but Denise stepped forward. I think Babette has been clear about her boundaries, she said firmly. I'm going to have to ask you to exit the store now. My father looked like he might argue, but ultimately took my mother's arm and led her toward the door. Tara remained, staring at me with an unreadable expression. Was any of it real? She asked quietly after our parents had left. Did you ever actually care about me? The question caught me off guard. Of course I did. I still do. That's why this hurts so much. She nodded slowly. I don't know how to be without you fixing everything. You'll learn, I said, not unkindly. You're smarter than you let yourself be. She hesitated, then turned to follow our parents. At the door, she paused. For what it's worth, I am sorry about your birthday, and other things. It wasn't much, but it was the first genuine apology I could remember receiving from my sister. A tentative first step, perhaps, toward something more authentic between us. After they left, Denise brought me a cup of tea. You handled that beautifully, she said. How are you feeling? Shaky, I admitted, but also strong? I've never stood up to them like that before. She patted my hand. That's because you've never had safe ground to stand on before. Now you do. I thought about her words for the rest of the day. Safe ground. That's what I'd created for myself by leaving. A foundation that couldn't be pulled out from under me at someone else's whim. A space where my needs mattered. For the first time, I had room to grow into the person I wanted to be, not just the person my family needed me to be. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. The 30 days I had requested turned into 6 weeks, then 2 months. During that time, I experienced a remarkable period of personal growth. Without the constant drain of managing my family's lives and emotions, I had energy to invest in myself. I excelled at work, and Denise offered me an assistant manager position with a significant pay increase. You have a natural talent for this business, she told me. I've been watching you develop displays that increase sales, connect with customers, and manage inventory better than I can. You deserve this promotion. It was the first time someone had recognized my capabilities as worthy of reward rather than exploitation. The validation was almost as valuable as the increased salary. With stable housing and a better income, I was able to save enough to take 2 classes at the community college. My academic performance improved without the constant interruptions of family crises. I made the dean's list for the first time, my GPA a perfect 4.0. I also began exploring interests I'd never had time for before. I joined a book club that met at turning pages, developing new friendships with people who shared my love of literature. I tried hiking with a local group and discovered I enjoyed the physical challenge and connection with nature. I took a free photography workshop at the library and found I had a good eye for composition. Madison remained my closest friend, but my social circle expanded in ways that surprised me. People seemed drawn to this new, more confident version of myself. You carry yourself differently now, Madison observed over dinner at my small kitchen table. Like you're actually comfortable in your own skin. I had also started therapy sessions with a counselor named Dr. Martinez, who specialized in family dynamics. Our weekly meetings helped me process the guilt, anger, and grief that sometimes threatened to overwhelm me. What you're experiencing is very normal, she assured me during a particularly difficult session. Family systems develop over generations, and breaking free of unhealthy patterns takes tremendous courage. The emotions you're feeling are part of the healing process. Through therapy, I began to understand that my family's dysfunction wasn't my fault, nor was it entirely theirs. They were repeating patterns they'd learned, just as I had. The difference was that I was actively working to break the cycle. Madison kept me informed about my family's increasingly desperate state. After our confrontation at the bookstore, they had retreated to lick their wounds, but their situation continued to deteriorate. Your parents tried to contact Stanford about Tara's acceptance, she reported. Obviously, they discovered she wasn't in their system at all. Then they called her undergraduate university and found out she hadn't been enrolled for nearly 2 years. The financial impact was severe. Not only had they spent thousands on tuition for classes Tara never attended, but they'd also been living beyond their means for years, assuming both daughters would eventually contribute to household expenses. "They're talking about selling the house," Madison said during our weekly coffee date. "Your dad mentioned downsizing to an apartment to one of the neighbors." I felt a pang of sadness, but reminded myself that these were the natural consequences of their choices. They were adults who had prioritized enabling Tara's lies over financial responsibility. My absence had simply accelerated the inevitable reckoning. 3 weeks after our bookstore confrontation, several of my family's friends began to reach out. My mother's best friend Susan called to check on me, but clearly wanted information to report back. "Your parents are very concerned," she said delicately. "They don't understand why you've cut them off so completely." "I haven't cut them off," I explained patiently. "I've established boundaries. There's a difference." These conversations were difficult but strengthening. Each time I calmly explained my position without apologizing or wavering, I felt more secure in my decision. The most surprising outreach came from Tara's friends. 2 of her sorority sisters visited the bookstore, awkwardly browsing until closing time when they approached me. "We wanted to see if you're really okay," the taller one, Amber, explained. "Tara's been telling everyone you had some kind of breakdown." I had to laugh at the irony. "As you can see, I'm perfectly fine. Better than fine, actually." They exchanged glances. "Tara's not doing well," the other girl, Brooke, said. "She's lost a lot of weight. Dropped out of our friend group. Jack broke up with her." The news about Jack surprised me, though perhaps it shouldn't have. He'd seemed genuinely troubled by the family dynamics he'd witnessed. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said sincerely. "But Tara's well-being isn't my responsibility anymore." "That's cold," Amber commented, though without real judgment. "It's necessary," I countered. "For both of us." As the 3rd month of my independence began, I experienced a moment of weakness. My mother left a tearful voicemail, describing how they were packing up the house, preparing to sell it, and move to a small apartment across town. "We just want to talk to you, honey," she pleaded. "To understand what went wrong. We miss you so much." Her voice sounded genuinely broken, and I found myself considering meeting them, perhaps helping them through this transition. I called Madison immediately, feeling my resolve wavering. "Before you make any decisions," she said, "I want you to watch something again." She came over that evening and played the video from my birthday dinner. Tara's casual cruelty, my parents' complete disregard for my feelings. The stark evidence of years of patterns suddenly visible in one concentrated moment. "Thank you," I said when it ended. "I needed that reminder." "That's what friends are for," she replied. "To help you remember your worth when you start to forget." The very next day, as if summoned by my moment of weakness, my entire family appeared at the bookstore during my afternoon shift. This time, they didn't approach with tears or recriminations. Instead, they positioned themselves near the register, clearly waiting for a quiet moment to speak. When the last customer moved away, my father stepped forward. "Babette, we need you to come home and help us sort out this mess," he said without preamble. "We're drowning in paperwork and bills. The house is in foreclosure. We can't manage without you." The blunt admission of their dependence on me was stunning in its transparency. No pretense of missing me for emotional reasons, just a straightforward acknowledgement that they needed my practical skills. "That's not my responsibility anymore," I replied calmly. "I have my own life now." "But we're your family," my mother interjected. "Family helps family. Family also respects boundaries," I countered. which you're violating by showing up at my workplace after I've repeatedly asked for space. Tara pushed forward. You're being selfish. Mom and Dad are losing everything because of you. Several customers turned to watch the escalating scene. Denise emerged from the office, concern evident on her face. They're losing everything because of choices they made long before I left, I said evenly. I'm not responsible for the consequences of their actions. How can you be so cold? Tara demanded. After everything they've done for you? What exactly have they done for me, Tara? I asked, my voice steady but clear enough that nearby customers could hear. They redirected my college fund to your private school. They canceled my 16th birthday party when you faked an injury. They ignored my 20th birthday to celebrate your fictional Stanford acceptance. My mother gasped. We never. That's not what happened. It is exactly what happened, I replied. And it was just one example in a lifelong pattern. You've always been jealous of me, Tara accused, her voice rising. You couldn't stand that Mom and Dad loved me more. The brutal honesty of her statement silenced the room. Several customers were openly staring now, some with phones partially raised as if considering recording the drama. You're right, I said quietly. They did love you more. Or at least, they acted like they did. And that's why I had to leave. Because no one should have to live where they're constantly reminded they're second best. My father's face flushed with anger. That's enough. You're coming home with us right now to fix this situation. You're right, I said quietly. They did love you more. Or at least, they acted like they did. And that's why I had to leave. Because no one should have to live where they're constantly reminded they're second best. You're right, I said quietly. They did love you more. Or at least, they acted like they did. And that's why I had to leave. Because no one should have to live where they're constantly reminded they're second best. No, I'm not, I stated firmly. I have built a life for myself. I have a job I excel at. I have my own place to live. I have friends who value me. I don't need to return to a home where I was never appreciated. Dad looked away guiltily. We were worried about you, Mom defended weakly. You were controlling me, I corrected. And you still are trying to. That ends today. I pulled out my phone, opened the settings, and found the hidden tracking app they'd installed years ago. I deleted it while they watched, then held up the screen to show them. I am an adult. I make my own choices now. If you want any relationship with me in the future, it will be on terms of mutual respect. Several customers actually applauded. Denise stepped forward, placing a supportive hand on my shoulder. I think it's time for you folks to leave, she said to my family. Babette has made her position clear. My parents looked stunned, as if they couldn't comprehend this turn of events. They had clearly expected to swoop in, assert their authority, and have me meekly follow them home to resume my role as family caretaker. Dad took Mom's arm. This isn't over, he said, but there was uncertainty in his voice. They turned to leave, shoulders slumped in defeat. Tara remained, staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. I don't know how to fix my life, she said quietly. It was the most honest thing I'd ever heard her say. That's something you have to figure out yourself, I replied, not unkindly, just like I had to. She nodded slowly. Can I talk to you sometime? Without them? The request surprised me. Why? Because everything's falling apart, she admitted. And I think maybe you're the only one who sees things clearly. It was the closest thing to an acknowledgement of truth I'd ever received from my sister. I found myself nodding. Not yet. I still need time. But maybe in a few weeks. You can email me. She looked relieved, then hurried after our parents. Through the store window, I watched them drive away, my father gesticulating angrily, my mother's head bowed. You okay? Denise asked when they were gone. Yes, I said, surprised to realize it was true. Better than okay, actually. The confrontation had solidified something in me. The last lingering doubt about my decision had evaporated in the face of their transparent attempt to manipulate me back into my old role. You know, Denise said thoughtfully, Sometimes people need to hit rock bottom before they can start climbing up again. Maybe this is their rock bottom. Her words stayed with me in the days that followed. Perhaps my leaving had been the catalyst my family needed to finally face reality. The comfortable illusions they'd maintained for years were crumbling, forcing them to confront the consequences of their choices. It wasn't my responsibility to fix their lives, but maybe, just maybe, my absence was creating space for something healthier to eventually grow in its place. 2 weeks later, I received an email from Tara. It was surprisingly thoughtful, lacking her usual dramatics. "I've started therapy," she wrote. "The therapist says I have narcissistic tendencies learned from years of reinforcement. That's hard to hear, but I think she's right. I'm trying to understand why I treated you the way I did. I think I was jealous of how capable you are, how everyone genuinely likes you without you having to manipulate them. I'm not asking for forgiveness yet. I know I haven't earned it. But I wanted you to know I'm trying to understand." I read the email several times, uncertain how to respond. Dr. Martinez helped me process my mixed emotions during our next session. "It's okay to be cautiously optimistic while maintaining your boundaries," she advised. "Real change takes time and consistent effort. Your sister is taking the first steps, but that doesn't mean you need to rush back into a relationship with her." I finally replied with a brief but encouraging note, acknowledging her effort without making promises about our future relationship. As the 4th month of my independence approached, I felt increasingly settled in my new life. The guest house truly felt like home. My job at the bookstore brought daily satisfaction. My college classes were challenging but rewarding. Most importantly, I was developing a stronger sense of self, separate from my role in my family. I was discovering who Babette could be when not defined by others' needs and expectations. And that person, I was finding, was someone I genuinely liked. 6 months after my silent exit from my family home, my life had transformed in ways I could never have imagined. I had been promoted to full manager at Turning Pages after Denise decided to open a second location across town. My salary increase allowed me to rent a small 1-bedroom apartment of my own, which I decorated exactly to my taste for the first time in my life. I had completed 2 semesters at the community college with perfect grades, and was on track to transfer to the state university the following year to complete my business degree. Denise had hinted that a position managing her new store might be available once I graduated. My social circle had expanded beyond Madison to include a diverse group of friends who knew me only as I was now, independent, confident, and selective about where I invested my energy. I had even started dating Jordan, a kind and thoughtful graphic designer I met through the book club. He valued my opinions and respected my boundaries in ways that felt revolutionary after a lifetime of having both ignored. The most profound changes, however, had occurred within my family. After hitting what Denise had accurately predicted would be their rock bottom, my parents had sought help. Financial counseling first, to address their immediate crisis, followed by family therapy. They had sold the house and moved to a modest 2-bedroom apartment, using the proceeds to pay off debts and establish a small emergency fund. Tara had continued her individual therapy, addressing the long-standing issues that had fueled her manipulative behavior. She had gotten a job as a receptionist at a local dental office, her first legitimate employment. According to Madison, who occasionally ran into her, she seemed humbler and more grounded. My relationship with all of them remained distant, but was slowly evolving. After 4 months of limited contact, I had agreed to occasional phone calls with my mother, who seemed genuinely committed to understanding where things had gone wrong. "I've been reading about enmeshed family systems," she told me during one call. "The therapist says we created unhealthy roles for both you and Tara. You as the responsible caretaker, her as the eternal child. It wasn't fair to either of you." The acknowledgement was validating, though I remained cautious about investing too much hope in their transformation. People didn't change overnight, and decades of patterns wouldn't disappear after a few months of therapy. In the 6th month after my departure, I decided to take a significant step. I invited my family to dinner at my apartment. It would be the first time we'd all be together since their confrontation at the bookstore. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Madison asked when I told her my plans. "I think so," I said. "I'm curious to see if the changes they claim to be making are real. And I'm secure enough now that I can leave if things turn toxic." "Want me to be on standby?" she offered. "I could text you with a fake emergency if you need an escape route." I smiled at her protectiveness. "I'll be fine. But maybe check in the next morning?" I spent a full day preparing for the dinner, not to impress them, but to create a space that felt completely mine and under my control. I cooked my favorite foods rather than catering to their preferences as I would have in the past. I set my small table with place settings I had chosen myself, in a style my mother would have found too modern. They arrived exactly on time, standing awkwardly at my door with forced smiles and a bouquet of flowers. I invited them in, accepting the bouquet with a polite thank you. "Your place is lovely," Mom said, looking around with genuine interest. "It's very you." "Thank you," I replied, surprising myself with how much her simple acknowledgement meant. We moved to the living area. The conversation stilted at first. Dad commented on the neighborhood. Mom asked about my job. Tara remained unusually quiet, observing rather than demanding attention. As we sat down to dinner, the initial tension began to ease. They complimented the food without qualification. Dad asked thoughtful questions about my transfer plans. Mom shared updates about family friends without pressuring me to reconnect with them. They arrived exactly on time, standing awkwardly at my door with forced smiles and a bouquet of flowers. I invited them in, accepting the bouquet with a polite thank you. I put down my fork, giving him my full attention. "We failed you as parents," he continued, his voice thick with emotion. "We took advantage of your responsibility and independence. We overlooked your needs while catering to Tara's demands. We weren't fair, and we're truly sorry." "Your place is lovely," Mom said, looking around with genuine interest. "It's very you." Tara looked up from her plate, her eyes shiny with tears. "I was awful to you. For years. I knew exactly what I was doing when I ruined your birthday, and all the other times too." She swallowed hard. "I was jealous and insecure and wanted all the attention. But I miss my sister. I miss who we could have been if I hadn't been so selfish." The raw honesty in the room was overwhelming. 6 months ago, I couldn't have imagined my family acknowledging their behavior so directly, without excuses or blame. "I appreciate your apologies," I said carefully. "And I believe you're sincere. But rebuilding trust takes time. I'm willing to work on our relationship, but I need you to understand that I won't go back to the old patterns. I have my own life now." "We don't expect you to," Dad assured me. "We're learning to stand on our own feet, all of us." He went on to explain the changes they'd made. Financial counseling had helped them create a realistic budget based on their actual income rather than expectations of my contribution. They had established clear responsibilities for household tasks, with Tara taking an equal share for the first time. "I'm doing my own laundry now," Tara said with a small, self-deprecating smile, "and cooking 2 nights a week. I'm pretty terrible at it, but I'm learning." We talked about their therapy, both individual and family sessions. Mom shared insights about her own upbringing that had shaped her parenting style. Dad acknowledged his tendency to take the path of least resistance, avoiding conflict at the expense of fairness. "We're not perfect," Mom concluded. "We still slip into old habits sometimes, but we're trying, really trying, to do better." "That's all anyone can do," I said, surprised by the genuine warmth I felt toward them in that moment. After dinner, as we shared the simple dessert I'd prepared, the conversation turned to holiday plans. Christmas was approaching, and in previous years, I would have been expected to organize everything. "We'd love to have you join us," Mom said tentatively, "but we understand if you have other plans." "Actually," Dad added, "we thought maybe we could do things differently this year. Each take responsibility for different aspects, make it more equal." It was a small gesture, but significant. an acknowledgement that holidays shouldn't rest entirely on my shoulders. "I'd like that," I said. "But I do have plans with Jordan for Christmas Eve. He's invited me to meet his family." Rather than guilt or disappointment, I saw genuine happiness on my mother's face. "That sounds wonderful, honey. Maybe you could both join us for dinner on Christmas Day?" The evening ended on a positive note, with tentative plans made for future get-togethers. As I showed them out, Tara hung back, waiting until our parents had started down the hallway. "Thank you," she said simply, "for not giving up on us completely. You would have been justified if you had." I hugged her briefly, the first genuine embrace we'd shared in years. We're sisters. That doesn't change, even when everything else does. After they left, I sat on my couch, processing the evening. It had gone better than I'd expected, but I maintained a healthy skepticism. Real change happened through consistent actions over time, not a single good dinner. Yet I couldn't deny the evidence of transformation. My parents' humility, Tara's accountability, the absence of manipulation tactics that had been their standard operating procedure for years. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. "How did it go? Need rescue?" I smiled as I typed my response. "Actually pretty good, cautiously optimistic." As I prepared for bed that night, I thought about the journey of the past 6 months. I had left home believing I needed to escape a toxic situation, which was true. But what I hadn't anticipated was how my departure would create the conditions for change that benefited everyone. By refusing to continue in my assigned role, I had forced my entire family to reckon with reality. The perfect image they'd maintained had shattered, but something more authentic was emerging from the pieces. I had learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for others is to stop protecting them from the consequences of their actions. By walking away, I had created space for genuine growth that wouldn't have been possible if I'd stayed and continued enabling their dysfunction. More importantly, I had discovered my own worth. I had built a life that reflected my values and priorities. I had surrounded myself with people who appreciated me for who I was, not what I could do for them. The journey wasn't over. Rebuilding healthy family relationships would take years, not months. There would be setbacks and disappointments along the way. But for the first time, I believed it might be possible to have a relationship with my family that enriched my life rather than depleted it. As I drifted toward sleep, I thought about my grandmother's diary, still kept in my bedside drawer. She had faced the same painful choice and found the courage to make it. I wondered if she ever reconciled with her family. I hoped she had found the peace and self-respect I was now discovering. Sometimes watching a perfect world collapse is necessary for something real to grow in its place. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from what's familiar but harmful toward an unknown future that holds the possibility of something better. My 20th birthday had indeed been ruined by my sister's tantrum. But in the end, that ruined celebration had given me the most valuable gift of all, the courage to create a life truly worth celebrating. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice to walk away from a relationship that wasn't serving you? Sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the most personal growth. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening. And remember that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential for your well-being. And sometimes the catalyst others need to grow too.